The title today is Go Slow Through the Sow. Go slow through the sow. So, if I was to really be honest about what I would change or what I would do better or different or adjust or tweak, it's a weird one because it's not something you actually ever graduate from. But I would say I would shift my mentality around sowing. And I think that there was a definite season when you first start People Church or any initiative where all you have is sowing, right? Because there's nothing yet. But as the cycles continue, then you've got this mixture of both sowing and reaping, sowing and seed time and harvest. And I think that for some reason, as I was looking at it, I was like, man, I didn't do that season as good as I could have. But I couldn't understand why I didn't, because I'm like, and this was my answer. I knew that I was so harvest focused that I didn't sow as well as I could have. But that makes no sense to me. Because how can I be harvest focused but not sow well? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I started asking myself, I'm typically a pretty logical person, and I'm like, why would I not do that? And then on top of that, I started going, well, does this exist anywhere else? And I kind of started to realize that, yeah, it exists for every single one of us in almost every place. For example, when you go to paint the house, like if you've ever painted a room, like you're so excited about the actual finished product, but the actual painting and taping quickly wears off. A road trip, you're super psyched about going on a road trip at first. Jimmy knows. And you're like ready to go, and you're like, this is going to be awesome. And then when you're in the road trip, it's like the physique that you want to achieve. It is the marriage that you want. It is the project. It is the building the house. It is getting the education, getting the job, living your dream. It is all so married to harvest, but yet how is it disconnected to sowing? Like, I don't understand that. Like we know we want health, but we don't eat well. Or we know that if we actually were to read our Bible, like we would reach all of our goals. We want those goals, but we don't do it. And I was like, what is the construct? What is the emotion for a human being as to why we don't actually do it? And why is there a disconnect? Because you can't value the arrival without understanding that it's a compilation of the journey. So like, where is that breakdown? I started to wonder what it was, and I just felt like I think it's partly an emotion. It's partly this desire to be somewhere so bad without the patience to wait for the journey to get you there. Yeah. It's this desire for a product without wanting to pay a price. It's like these things within us where we are so oriented. And I was like, where does this kind of come from? Like, how? I think in essence, there's in the younger years of our life, and I think this might be a byproduct of your maturity, is we are given what we want. Everything that we need, everything that we want, in essence, well, whether you're talking even from the most deprived possible childhood, at the very least, like you cry for food, you're fed. You don't have to go cook it, you don't have to grow it, you just basically get it, right? And the day that you want something as a kid, your parents try to instill some sort of principles, but you get it. And there's this certain sense that as you grow up, you now have to marry the difference between that's what I want and this is how I get it. It has to be built, it has to be sown, it has to be cared for. And there's a lot of like mentality around this that we don't often do. And I was talking to our leaders in Toronto, and I was just saying, listen, like the best thing you could do right now is make sure that you go slow through the sow. Like don't sow so quickly just to say you got it in the ground. Like, don't just say that you've got seed in the ground, so therefore it's going to happen. There's so much more to it. And in fact, the whole seed time, like, routine is so much more, I guess, full and involved than simply just scattering some seed. And so if you're in this room and, digitally or other, we just had Vision Sunday, and we could sit there and go, man, that's awesome. Let's now see all the growth. We could sit off the back of Vision Sunday and feel like, well, we're ready for harvest. But the truth is this, that you never actually ever graduate from seed time. And that your seed time is only as effective, your harvest is only ever going to be as effective as your seed time, but it's going to require you to live in the now if you're ever going to enjoy the later. And I think what we tend to do is do it the opposite. We live in the later, and therefore we actually cannot enjoy the now. Our head is so far in the marriage that we want, the wedding we're about to have, the body that we want to achieve, the ministry we want to lead, the platform we want to speak from, the kids that we want to have, the season that we want to be in. And we're so there that we actually don't appreciate here.
Yeah.
And when you overlook here, and when you can't appreciate here, you can't appreciate anything. And in fact, what you start to do is you start to trick yourself into believing that you have earned and therefore have a right for later when you haven't paid the price now. And then that makes you cop an attitude with the now. You're angry with the leaders you have now because you believe you deserve the leaders that you want later. You're angry with the body or the diet that you have now because you believe you deserve. And you might go, oh, how does that work? Heaps of people think that fit people are simply a compilation of genetics. The reality is the people that are like genetically disposed to just absolute incredible physiques is so small. There might be a sliding scale between them and someone else, but nonetheless, if you abstract discipline and you abstract the work that they do, you'll actually never achieve what they have because you will belittle what they have because you belittle how they got there. And what we do a lot, so even in the areas of physique, we believe we deserve something, but my genetics, no, like there's actual principles, or we believe we deserve because we've paid the price of time. I've been here for so long, I should have by now. Or I have given, or I am so kind that therefore my husband, my wife, my kids, my church, my business, my leaders, my family, my extended family, they should, my followers, whatever it is, we honestly believe that we deserve something. And what we also believe is I did it once, so I should reap forever. Like I sowed, I don't know, I already sowed into that relationship. Like I reached out 4 times. Like, no, I already told that leader, like we literally had a session. I put it on a whiteboard, and we circled back and he thanked me. You know how many times I hear that? Like, no, I know I told them. They thanked me. Like, okay, awesome. But does that mean I water a seed once? Right. Like, do I sow once and expect that all seeds would grow? Like, it's this mentality that we have, And I think it's a fallacy, it's a lie, and it's actually exasperated around today's, just through today's life where, we view people's lives from the window that is our handset or our computer. And it's great. And it's not their responsibility to tell us everything. It's our responsibility to understand the mechanics of everything. And so what we keep seeing is wins and wins, aka harvest and harvest and harvest and harvest. And we're not there for the work behind it. And what we then start to believe is that there is something wrong with us. So now that makes you think there's no point in sowing because I'm just not a reaper. My life just won't reap. And then what we also do in doing that is we negate that sowing is a law, so therefore it's always in action. You are actually always sowing. Whether you like it or not, you're sowing. So you are either sowing mediocrity, or you are sowing half done, or as I would say, half-assed, really. You are sowing, you're sowing bad friendship because you haven't reconciled the fact that conflict resolution is an adult must. So you keep changing friends because you won't stop to change.
So good.
We're always sowing. You cannot get away from it. You actually, in your worst day, here's the other thing that happens quite often, is we think a bad day is a reason to actually have a bad attitude. But the reality is that I know that when I wake up to a bad day, I can only make it worse. Or I can make it better. Because sowing an attitude doesn't reap anything. Sowing a negative response. One of my challenges at the moment with Mav and with life in general is like, man, I've noticed because I'm really like, how am I going to run this year? Like, how am I going to really keep going? What needs to change in Chris Carmona? What needs to grow? And I'm like, okay, I know what needs to change is I need to stop expecting a lack of obstacles. Not only that, I have to respond to obstacles with something that has longevity, is good for my soul, and produces good work, and keeps me focused. And that is this for me. I need to go through my grow with joy. Like I need to wake up and find joy in so many things, not forgetting that not too long ago, I had a pretty bad diagnosis. That not too long ago, it is a pleasure and a gift to be drawing breath. That If I'm up at 4 a.m., I can focus that, but I signed up for it.
Yeah, right.
And the reality is it's not that bad. And perspective is something worth sowing if a good attitude is something I want to reap.
That's great.
So like this sowing and reaping thing, it's everywhere. And here's the other thing, like, okay, you're bitter. You want to keep sowing more thoughts into what originated the bitterness, you're going to reap more bitterness.
Yeah, right.
So if there was an offense instilled by a person, you can either sow and replay
Yeah, right.
what they said, or you can ask why it even has a home in your heart.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Come on.
Because there are certain pH levels that will kill seed. There are some seeds that you've got to ask yourself, why do they grow with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why does entitlement grow with me? Like, why does a lack of effort grow with me? Why does carelessness with people grow with me? Why does offense and coldness grow with me? Why am I so quick to switch off? Why does that grow with me? Like, if I ask that question, I actually start to realize, hey, whilst there might be seeds, I'm also soil. And if I am soil that doesn't kill that kind of stuff, then I'm soil that's going to make it thrive. And it's those things. How do I keep... The law of sowing is always there, which the scary part is this. The sowing always comes with return. So if the law of sowing is always active, so is the law of harvest. So is the law of harvest. So that means that sometimes what we want in our life, which we blame people for, we don't realize we've been sowing for a very long time.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And, you know, Ords and I were talking recently about a situation, and we're like, man, it's so crucial for people to understand their losses.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you walk people through some really bad seasons, it feels, there's always this tension point on when do I let you know your part in this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the problem is if you don't let them know their part in it, which is why we start Staffy the way we start it all the time, which is you can't replicate what you don't celebrate. If you don't know why you won, you won't win again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Come on.
If you don't know what was right about the recipe, you won't make it again. It'll be a one-hit wonder that's awesome, but all you'll have is a nostalgic memory, but you won't have something that you can repeat.
Yeah.
So this sense of like harvest and this sense of like sowing, it's the biggest regret that I think I could have done better in. It's the biggest thing that challenges me today because I've got to keep asking myself, man, how do I be a better, more oriented sower? And that starts with a better understanding of sowing. And I want to put this out there just to help locate you. Is a good day for you determined by how much you harvested or how much you sowed?
Come on.
That's good. Good. Yeah, that's great.
So basically, is a good day for you? And I watch this play out in this very simple, practical way. How was work today? Oh, man. All I did was work. How's your day today? Oh, all I did was meet with people. What'd you do today? Oh my gosh, I had to teach my kids like 1 million lessons today. Okay, so you just now are turning your nose down at sewing. You're upset because you did work,
Yeah.
Come on.
which is sewing.
Right.
Which
Good.
sewing is laborious.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Don't forget that those seeds are light, not when they're stacked together though, and on bags and on trucks.
Wow.
And then don't forget that you've got to turn soil. Man, one of my most painful days, and Gio did come to my rescue. Man, I don't know, the Lord sent him. Like, I had to lay the grass in my house, right? And my house had years of neglect. Not my house alone, the block of land.
Yeah.
Years. Like there was people didn't, when they built something, they didn't get rid of what was built, they built over it. So like there was slabs, there was concrete, there was steel, there was, man, I got so deep that I found coal. There is coal, not coal, Lewis, obviously. But what are you doing here? But like there was actual coal right there. And like I bought this machine and God just loves me, man. Because I went and I was trying to save money and it's called I think it's a tiller. And basically I got the 2-wheel tiller. And they're like, oh, sorry, let's test it. They test it, it doesn't work. They're like, we're going to have to give you the 7-lane tiller for the same price. I was like, sweet, I'm going to do it so quick. If I would have got that 2-wheel tiller, I would have died. I would have died. Odds was there, right? I did 8 hours, and you basically get the machine, right? You clamp down on it, and then it feels like you're old school, like moving oxen, but They're just, motorized. And you're like, right? And you're shaking. And I've got the worst soil in the world. There's rocks, there's everything. And I had to rip up that whole ground. And then I had to work away the land until I could make it kind of level. And then I found concrete. So then I had to go get a jackhammer. And then I'm like, then moving concrete. I did it for 8 hours, man. So much so that I woke up in the middle of the night with my hands cramped like this. Like, it was the worst part I've ever done in any laborious thing I've ever done. I've been a bricklayer, like Bricky's laborer. I didn't even lay the bricks. I got the bricks and the cement, and this was worse. And, like, we don't remember that. Soil has to be broken up. Some of us want to get straight to sowing, but we haven't even prepared soil. If you haven't broken up your attitude and broken down your pride a bit, what are you going to sow? Like, what are you going to sow into you if you're still the same hard ground that you were? You've still got ground that has been hardened by religion, hardened by expectation, hardened by loss, hardened by attitude, hardened by just arrogance. Like, I know better. Thinking that wins in another world somehow translate everywhere else. They don't, you know what I mean? You might have been the best salesman in the world, well, you're not going to be the best grow group leader probably. They're not the same thing. You know, and when we don't realize that, like, we think that this sowing thing is quick and easy. But you've got to get tools, you've got to break up soil, you've got to break your back, you then got to water, then you've got to test, and then nowhere near harvest. You start sowing. And then you got to start tending to, and then you got to start watering. Why am I saying this? I want to ask you, have you worked a relationship till your hands hurt? Have you worked an attitude until you actually are cramped up from the effort? Because I think we're so used to getting things quickly that the quicker you've gotten things, the quicker you'll quit things.
That's real.
The quicker you've been given things, the quicker you're going to quit the work. Because you've built a learning pattern in your life that if it's going to work, it works in this time frame. Which is why my first years of sowing in People Church was so difficult. Because when I was with Jimmy, everything I sowed, I reaped super quick. Not realizing that I had purchased land, so to speak, that had already been tilled. But then I come to Chicago and the land wasn't tilled. So I thought I was better at harvesting and sowing than I was. I wasn't. I was very average at it. What I had been given wins from other people's broken backs. And so then all of a sudden we start quitting and we start blaming. Have you ever noticed that the first person this happens, there was that guy, Lucas Lopez, he was talking about like working with Latin parents. And it's so freaking funny because it's so true. Like, I'd be working with my mom or my uncle or something, and like it's a household task, and like, I don't know, they hit their finger and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you gonna just stand there like an idiot?" Like, and you're like so frustrated. Like, you're like, "Whoa, I don't know what I'm doing." That's nature. When it's not working for you, you get frustrated at them. Oh, I'm not growing, so it's obviously my leadership above me that I rarely contact and don't do what they tell me to do, and still never have gotten to the attitude that they're trying to, reconcile in me. I just correct actions because that proves them that they are wrong. There's a difference between these things, right? And so what we do is we've learnt within us that wins take an X amount of time. We can't ever possibly fathom that it might be us. And so we're not even ready to sow, let alone ready for the actual work that goes with it. And that was me. I came out of a season of winning, and I thought that this season would be the same. And I was a better leader than I'd ever been. I was better in so many ways, yet I was so ignorant to the process of what goes from at my table to what's happening in a field somewhere else. And I enjoyed food at my table of people telling me, "You're a great preacher, and you're a great leader, and look how quick this grew, and oh my gosh, no one's ever done it." And the reality was I was just literally living the difference between going to Trader Joe's and getting my pre-cut stuff instead of actually knowing what it's like to cut things myself. Do you know what I mean? You don't appreciate someone that cut your onions for you until you've had to cry through cutting onions. You know what I mean? You don't everyone's like, "Why do you love the lawn?" Because my soul's buried in it. Okay? Like my soul was in that lawn. But that's part that happens. You'll never love the field until you've had to actually like bleed for it.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
So therefore, we don't actually we're never loyal to the field. What we're loyal to is the harvest.
Yeah.
So if you have found yourself complaining because all your day was, and all your week and all your month provided you was sowing, you had a day of correcting the kids, you're sowing.
Yeah.
Come on.
You're sowing into future leaders every time you correct them. You're sowing into actual contributors in a society every time you correct them.
Yeah.
You had to sow into your marriage. Yes, that means you can expect that there'll probably be a good one on the other side of that in a few years, few weeks, few months. You have to sow into it. You had to sow into your relationship with your leader above you. Guess what? They're human.
Yeah.
They're human. They have emotions. They also don't think and wake up in the morning, hopefully, and go, oh my God, everybody that comes to People Church is going to want to love me. They are probably waiting for me to call them. You guys. No, we don't do that. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't think your grow group leader wakes up going, they want to hear from me. Yep. It actually is a very difficult process
Yeah.
to get up and preach and pour out everything that you feel God gave you. Include all of your soul. Be honest enough with all of your experience and bear it to everybody. And all you get back, it's kind of like when you cook a great meal and you want everyone to be like, dang, this is what you put in this. You want a reaction.
Yeah.
Well, when you preach it, you give everything and everyone's like, do you know what that's like? Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
You also got to realize that seeds are always doing something under the surface.
Right. Right.
As a preacher, if all you care about is reactions, there is a difference between seeds that sprout quickly and seeds that take time.
Yeah. That's good.
Seeds that sprout quickly usually don't have roots. I'm always careful with someone that I teach something and then they say they got it. Yeah, I understood. Yeah, man. Yeah, God just dealt with me. The Lord just... I don't know that you know.
Right.
I don't trust you.
Yeah.
Because while he does a lot of things miraculously, most of them he does through process.
Yeah.
So, if you have spent most of your time complaining about the work you had to do that day, it just means you don't understand what the work means.
Right.
Now, conversely, if you come home, crack open a bottle of communion wine, and Melanie Munoz, I'm looking at you, and she's like, pushes glass off screen. If conversely, an incredible day for you is payday, award ceremony day, the day where one of your posts got more attention, the day where your kids behaved perfectly. There is place for celebration, obviously, right? We've just spoken about harvest. However, if they're the only days you celebrate, I don't think you really understand the cycle yet.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
If they're the only days that make you feel good, you don't understand the cycle yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
If when those days come, you feel accomplished, aka arrived, you don't understand the process yet. If you feel at the end of those days like there was meaningfulness to what your day did, if it validates you and makes you feel like, wow, there is some worth to you, let me tell you that you do not understand the process. And if that's where you're going to live, that is also where you're going to die.
Yeah.
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 That's true.
Because that's why most pastors don't look back until the last song. But if that's what's going to give them life, the empty crowd's what's going to kill them.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you've got to speak and preach like you're sowing seed. You've got to live like you're sowing seed. You've got to parent like you're sowing seed. And it's not a this or that. It's a combination of both. Why I'm preaching this is because I and many people like me, and I think most of us, in some areas, are so harvest enamored, but sowing starved. And we just got to get that in better correlation.
Yeah.
Because 90% of the harvest journey is sowing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
Like it's tending, it's seeding, man, there's so many practicals that I could go into with it. But
So good.
I just wanted to I got a few minutes I can rapid fire. So here are some practicals, right? There is a difference, be aware. Okay, one of the first things we need to know about sowing, be aware of your environment. Be aware of where you're sowing. Do you know that if there's two approaches to starting. Let's say you're like an avid, I don't know who these people are. I don't think I'm this person, but every time I say I'm not going to be that person, I am that person. I didn't want to play golf. I love golf. I didn't want to ever have lawn. I love lawn. I was never going to have a dog. I have a dog. So I'm just going to say it right now. I am never going to be a trillionaire. I hate trillions. The thing I was reading is like, let's say you want to start a veggie patch and you're getting vegetables and all fruits and everything. There's two ways to do it. You either direct sow or you sow in the house. And you basically sow in the house and then you got to transfer that over to where you're going to sow. But the thing about that is that you've got to be conscious of the environment. If you were going to take something that was grown inside and then put it outside directly, it won't survive.
Yeah.
They actually go through a process of putting it outside, bringing it back inside.
Yeah.
Outside, inside, so it starts to acclimatize to the environment that it's going to live in. When you're sowing, I watch so many people kill their future harvest because they sow into someone in an environment that they're not going to actually end up in. Thinking, I've seen so much growth in you here, you must be able to survive out there. And then they transfer them only to find them as a failing, it doesn't work, they wither, they die, they slowly start to dissipate. Why? Because you basically sowed someone into an environment that they're not called to exist in. So therefore, what I mean by that is, as a leader, we can do that because the indoor environment is the one where we limit feedback, we limit the blows that come with leadership. We don't let them experience all their losses. We make sure that there's not too much collateral because eventually it's our collateral and we don't want our oversights to look at us and say, well, we didn't do it. So what we do is we limit the losses that get to them and we also weaken them for the losses that they are meant to overcome. So when you sow, you've got to be aware of the environment you're sowing into. What are you sowing? Is it really going to sustain them for what they're made to be? There is so much necessity for us to understand that. The second, and I'll just go into a few of the principles for the sake of time, but the first thing I think we lack in order, and is the reason that we don't really go slow through the sow, is we just lack patience.
Yeah.
We're an instant society. We like instant gratification. We want instant everything. In fact, it's human nature. We are unfortunately disposed and just prone to live in the path of least resistance. And I think the devil knows it. And so the devil, people often talk about the concept of open doors. What does that really mean? It really just means this. What are you susceptible to? Like Samson's open door, if you will, was he had like a susceptibility to obviously the ladies and, flirting with the line. Because he flirted with the line in multiple different times, not just women. Like he was one that tested the limits. That was an open door for him, right? You know that with, I don't know, Judas, right? The open line was the finances and there's always an open door somewhere. And what is that open door essentially? For the devil, it's the path of least resistance. And it is the path that he knows he can get to you quickest. And it's typically the path for us that has not experienced resistance.
Wow.
So we have not fortified it. We have not built a theology around it, an experience around it. So for example, if you have always gotten things quickly, the path of least resistance to get to you is instant.
Yeah.
I will actually wreck you as long as I can deprive you from what you want for long enough. Honestly, when I play sport with people, that's sometimes the greatest strategy. If you can just get your opponent off to a really bad first 15 minutes, that's first port of call when you're competing with someone. Because most people want to win straight away and don't know how to push past. Everyone has a threshold. A lot of people's is quite quick. If you can test that, you don't even have to be better than them. I think for us, the reason we don't often get to harvest with more seeds sown well is patience.
Yeah.
How good is your patience?
Yeah.
What is patience made up with? What is it made up of? How do you construct better patience? I think number one for constructing better patience is wait with joy. This is something that Ord says to the kids, and I think it's just done so well. It's wait with joy. Knowing that joy is not the same as happiness. Joy is not the same as laughter. Joy is an inner sense of like peace and positivity and it being well with your soul, irrespective of what's happening around you. Joy is not affected by the environment, it affects the environment.
Yes, that's right. Excellent.
Come on.
Which means you've got to actually know that your joy comes from a deeper place than your environment. A win and a harvest is nothing more than an environmental shift. And so if all your joy comes from your wins, you will never actually be able to withstand what will bring you sadness as you sow. But if your joy is pent up in something deeper than that, unrelated to that, if your joy is in your relationship and quiet time with God, well, the beauty of that is this, that can never be taken from you. And so as your joy comes in the assurance that your God will deliver to you the very things that he promised, if your joy is in doing the work that pleases him, if your joy is in bringing praise to your God, like this is a way to stay joyful. When you want to construct patience, you first have to work on joy.
That's so good.
And if you can work on joy, like then all of a sudden patience becomes a byproduct because you're no longer in a rush. Most of us want to harvest because most of us are looking to be fulfilled. I want to reap. I want to have the harvest of that relationship, of that marriage, of that accolade, of that title, of that bank account, of that milestone. But look, I've spoken to people for a very long time, that have gained what they want. And you know that gaining what you want is the least. It's actually nowhere near the best part of all of that journey. It is the strive. It is the pursuit. The what will it be like that is better than having it and gaining it. That's why your joy is completely subjective to the length, depth, and breadth of your vision. If your ideal of marriage is pent up in the wedding day and the waking up to breakfast in bed, I'll tell you that your marriage, once achieved that, you'll start asking what else. But if your vision for marriage goes a little bit deeper, like I can't wait to have to support my significant other through a tough season. I think there's so much romance and beauty in that. Man, I can't wait till we have grandchildren. I can't wait till we get to help our kids find their purpose together. I can't wait till we have to be like on our knees believing for God to come through on something that we're building in together. That kind of depth in vision provides a different level of a rival in marriage. But when all you want is a rival and your vision's short-sighted, well, the problem is you gain it. And when you gain it, there's nothing else there. You've lost the wonder once you've gained it. When they say that the joy is in the journey, it's not a cliche for those it's not a way of softening the blow for those who haven't arrived. It's wisdom from those who have a habit of arriving that realize arrival is not the best part.
That's good. Come on.
Honestly, I think that one of the reasons I was able to give up earning a lot of finance in both sport and even my marketing career and selling and sales and do ministry is because when my mum and dad divorced, I grew up very poor with my mum. I grew up living on top of stores. I grew up in the poorest parts of Sydney. She lives in the project still of Sydney. And then my father is extremely wealthy, pretty wealthy. I've driven in just really nice cars and just always been around that, half my life been around it. So now when I build, there's no luster to that. I love nice things. Unfortunately, I have very nice taste, or expensive taste, at least I could say. I love nice things. I love it way more than not nice things. But it's not enough to actually distract me. Because I was just as depressed when I lived with my dad as I was with my mom. So I actually realized that poverty and wealth didn't change my state of being. That was my experience. So when I came to church, experiencing both extreme poverty and extreme wealth, and my actual breaking point and health was Jesus, well then I obviously lost value in those things.
Yeah.
And so what I have watched though is as I've watched people arrive and hit every milestone in their companies or in their personal wealth or in relationships, you know what I've found is numbness. People start to turn lukewarm because their successes were always pent up in what they achieve, in where they run. And so I think that you've got to have this sense of understanding that the best part is the journey of sowing. And if you can find joy in that, then you are a lethal combination, because you've got the combination of deep vision and you've got the combination of joy. You can construct great patience, because now what you do is you realize that there is genuine worth in me staying here. So if you're going to actually get better at sowing, you need to get patient. And you're going to construct patience with joy, and you're going to construct patience with not having just an arrival mentality, but deep vision. Okay?
Yes.
Last one, for the sake of time, is price. Obviously, if you've, ever studied economics, or you've studied just finance in any way, or just been around and observed, you would understand that any value, any price tag on anything is completely subjective. In the sense that the price tag is fixed, but whether you'd pay it is up to you. Right? Like there are some people that a $9 coffee is like vomit. I would never do it. And they love their $2 either Tim Hortons or flipping Dunkin' Donuts. They're like, this is living. I don't see the difference. You know what I mean? But then, like, they'll spend ridiculous amounts on something else. And to the next person, it's like, that's craziness, right? Other people will be like, I spent 5 hours doing this and I got this out of it. And everyone's like, okay. And it's nothing to them. What I'm saying is that it's relative. Why is it relative? It's actually due to appreciation. If you don't learn to bring value to the price that sowing makes you pay, you'll actually never really appreciate it, and you'll never fully pay it. And I don't think we are good at, like, we don't appreciate the value and the cost of sowing, so we just don't ever want to pay it. We're not down for paying it because it just costs too much. And I don't know if I want to pay hours in front of someone. I don't know if I want to do that. Why? Because things have been given to us.
Yeah.
And what we've also done is, I think it's human nature to not let you into the field because it's not glamorous. You know what I mean? In every athlete's, like, and most people's inner dialogue, there's a sense of I'll show you. And they don't invite you into the work arena. They don't invite you into the gym. They don't invite you into the sweat, the blood, the tears, the questioning. They do it all so that they can show you the win. And let the win speak for itself. It's pretty much what we do, right? Because there's no glory in the work. At least from a human perspective. But from a God perspective, there's huge glory in the work.
Yeah. Come on. Huge.
And so because there's no glory in the work, we're not accustomed to seeing it. So we're not familiar with the equation of success. The equation of success for us is some are successful and some are not.
Yeah.
Some are blessed and some are not. Some are lucky and some are not. Now, some of those things happen all the time, but they just don't happen all the time.
Yeah.
You're not lucky forever.
Right.
And neither are you overlooked forever.
Right.
So the best thing you could be is prepared
Right.
to pay the price.
Yes.
You've got to get ready and understand that all these things must be built. And so if you're sitting there, and I want to challenge you in this team, if we're going to build the Vision Sunday that we just spoke about, I need you to understand that the price is worth it, and you've got to start valuing it.
Yes.
You've got to value the price of being spoken into.
Yes.
You can't keep complaining that someone's addressing the same thing in you, and really what you're upset about is that you haven't grown yet, but you're aiming your anger at the person trying to grow you instead of the person in you that needs to grow.
Right.
Like, that's got to shift. If you're going to grow, it's got to shift. If you're a leader in this room and your grow group hasn't worked, you've got to stop blaming people.
Right.
And you also got to stop saying that you somehow are the one person that can't grow a grow group. That's not true. You're the one person that can't write an essay. That's not true. You might have to do more than someone else, but how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
And what I've actually had to reconcile over the years is the perfect mixture and blend between my work ethic and God's blessing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, God's blessing is absolutely paramount.
Yes.
However, he's not going to bless something that I haven't put before him.
Yeah. Right. Come on.
So you've got to get good at keep putting things before him.
Yeah.
Do the work because it's good work and should be done. And then let God bless those leadership meetings. Let God bless those pastoral meetings. Let God bless that work ethic. Let God bless that endeavor. Don't be afraid of failure. You don't stop sowing seeds just because you know 30% of them won't flourish.
Right.
Yeah.
So write more messages.
Yes.
Creative team, write more songs.
Yes.
Lead more people and then lead again.
Come on.
Yeah.
We're going to start more campuses, always. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep moving. We're going to spit more vision. We're going to try more. We're going to open the doors wider. We're going to invite more friends, and then we're going to invite more friends after that. And then we're going to show up and we're going to read more verses, and we're going to get up and we're going to eat better, and we're going to go to the gym again. And then we're going to discipline our kids even more, and we're going to work on our marriages even further. And we're going to do more date nights, and we're going to keep figuring it out, because sowing is a lifestyle that those who want to live with good harvest understand. And then we're going to make sure that we extend vision to deeper fields, to wider fields, so that we never ever arrive to a place where vision has been lived. Because if you've already lived your vision, that is not a telltale sign of how blessed you are, but maybe how short-sighted you've been.
Yeah. It's good.
So we're going to fall in love with the sowing. And as we do that, I think we will get better harvests. That's my Staffy.
Yes.
Hope that speaks to you.
Amazing.
Wow.
Well, everyone, you guys are awesome. We're going to kill it this year. It's going to be great. Let's go do some sewing this week, and let's put this challenge out there. Work hard this week, and let's build a new habit. Let's do this practical, okay? I want you to, after every bit of hard work or everything that was hard, everything that was difficult, I want you to stop and go, I'm so glad I sowed that.
Yes.
Let's learn how to celebrate the sow
Yeah.
so that we're not so quick to run through it,
Yeah.
but actually sow it in such a way that we are going to enjoy what's on the other side for us.
Yes.